Hey, hello everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Full Court Cleveland on the Big Play Network, on FanDuel Sports Network. Download the app. That way my boss can pay me and send me the check. And also, so you can catch us up any time of the day. Anytime you're working out, you're in the sauna. I don't know if Sam is one of the sauna people that listen to podcasts. But, well, anywhere you consume your sports up-to-date shows. Here we are, Full Court Cleveland, Rafa Fernandez Brito, Sam Amico joining me. We're going to talk a little bit about everything. Obviously, basketball, Cavaliers, still with the best record in the NBA, even though so many people. It looked like the final scene of the Titanic, all the people jumping ship. After the Cavs has gone 5-5 in the last 10. Oh, my God. Obviously, injury, Sam, have that to do with it. Obviously, schedule has to do with it. Yeah. I was looking at the schedule today while I'll say hello to you. 16 home games are the ones that the Cavaliers have left of the 24-25 season. That's unbelievable. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well, and that's a true test, right, Raf, of getting you ready for the playoffs when you don't have as many home games, and you have to win a road game in the playoffs. If you're a great team, you always see it. So, good second half of season coming up after the All-Star break. Prepare themselves for the playoffs, get healthy. As far as the 5-5 and 10 games, I had everybody freaking out for a little bit, but
and we have talked about how this month of January was going to be probably a point of people having given the reason to say, oh my God, the Cavs are not, it's just a hot start. We talked about how it became a good start, and it became a nice streak, and then it became a historic streak, and then it's a good season. It is a season of improvement for the Cavaliers, and Kenny Atkinson, we'll be talking about more of him later, about going and coach the Eastern Conference in the All-Star game. But also, we always talk about what's coming up this week. Let's go back here and talk about those 3 games. Oh, my God, the Cavs lost 3 in a row, and the longest losing streak for them this season. But in a way, they lost them less than 10 points, I believe, and it was games that finally, everybody's getting the picture, Sam, that everybody's bringing the game of their lives when they play the Cleveland Cavaliers, and that was the case against a team that looked really good, the Rockets.
Yeah.
They went on after that and beat on back-to-back nights. They beat the Hawks and the Celtics. So they look good. And then, Philadelphia playing with all these people hurt, playing people that are looking for jobs and looking for minutes, play well. On the road, that's the way it goes. But what's your take on this whole 5-5 for the last 10 games and losing 3 in a row, and how the injuries are starting to stack up for the Cavs?
Yeah, they've had obviously you've had those injuries mostly to the 3 wing players in Dean Wade and Okoro and LeVert. Those guys have missed quite a bit of time now. But I think more than anything, Raf, is you look at those 3 losses, like you said, by a total of 8 points. Some things just bounced the wrong way in those games, and that was not something that had been happening to them very often. So it's good that they experienced it. Like, not every shot's going to drop, not every defensive stand's going to work perfectly, and there are little hiccups at the ends of games that you learn from, right? Donovan Mitchell said it best. It's great to learn from wins, but sometimes you got to learn from losses, and that's really what's going to get corrected. And as we've seen with them moving forward, the defense was a little bit of an issue. Well, the last 2 games leading into this show, it's been very good. And Kenny Atkinson said, look, we had a talk with the guys in the morning before the game and said, we don't really care what else you do. Just shore up the defense. Then everything else will fall into place. And they've done that for the last 2 games. And as Kenny Atkinson said, this team always responds when they're given instruction. And that's really what you're looking for as you move forward into the playoffs.
And here's one thing. I understand the feeling from the fans' side that they want to win. They want to go 82-0.
Right.
And there's no way that they should lose to a good team, like a very well coached team like the Rockets, and a very good at executing team like the Rockets and everything else. And there are games like the Philadelphia games that you're going to lose throughout the season. But what teams like the Cavs and competitive teams like the Cavs, I don't want to say we're in the group of the Nuggets and the Celtics that they just waiting for this regular season to be over so they can get into. We're almost there, right? But we do know that the piece of the pie that we want is at the end. It's after the regular season. But let's say this about the Cavs. Those 3 losses, especially, they battle like competitive, like contenders, like championship contenders, because they were on the road against Houston and Philadelphia, came back, erased double-digit deficit against the Rockets at home. It was almost a 20-point deficit, and they even came back to tie it, I believe, in the fourth quarter. And like you said, there were some balls that didn't want to go in. There were some loose balls that bounced the Rockets' way, and that is what the difference can be in the playoff. And Donovan Mitchell has said it, when that streak of the Cavs had was like 8 straight games, or I don't know how many games straight winning by 10 points or more, and they were missing that competition. Well, that's the thing. Those are the learning curve, right?
Yeah.
Of figuring out a way to come ahead in those close games.
When you said it earlier, Ralph, when you're the team with the league's best record, you've got a target on your back now for every game. You know, the Houston Rockets are a team that's on the rise this season. A lot of young talent. They really came after the Cavs in both those games, and they barely escaped, you know. So I think from those losses you learn that what it's like to be the team with the target on your back. And you also learn that against teams like Boston and Denver and the Lakers. Those teams all want to show, hey, we're still on top, but the Cavs have really done a nice job overall, big picture-wise, of fighting off those teams and winning most of those games.
Well, enough Back to the Future here in Full Court Cleveland. When we come back, we're going to dive into what's coming up for the Cavs. Another 4-game stretch, another stretch of really tough games, home and away. But also, we're going to talk about the All-Star game, the voting, and, of course, we're going to get out of the script and talk a little bit about what everybody doesn't want to talk about. Is like the chef and Mahomes are up for a 3rd straight Super Bowl. Hey, come on. You can't hate the winners. You can hate us. We'll be back in Full Court Cleveland. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode, another segment now of Full Court Cleveland. And it's time to go to the Cleveland headlines that are brought to you by our good friends at Garage Beer. Garage Beer comes in just 2 flavors, classic light lager and lime. No frills, no bitterness, no IPAs. It's just beer, flavor beer. Find local retailers who sell Garage Beer near you by visiting drinkgaragebeer.com. Sam Amico, yours truly, Rafa Hernandez Brito, and somebody that doesn't like to be mentioned most of the time. I don't think it's because he wants to be related to the thing. Our producer, Ryan Tyler, he just like, don't say my name. I don't want anybody saying I have anything
I like when you say my name, Ron. I get lonely.
He doesn't want to be affiliated
like,
with the show.
I don't want anybody to know I have anything to do with that show. But Ryan is the one behind, the guy making it all happen here with us. So once again, we go with the headlines. Sam, the first headline, the Cavs are playing once again on my birthday. Last time they played on my birthday, Donovan Mitchell and Dylan Brooks got into it. And let's hope that this time, like against the Mavericks, that again we come up with the victory, and that's it. But first, the day we're recording this program, the only team in the Eastern Conference that the Cavs have not been able to beat so far is in town, which is the Hawks, the Atlanta Hawks. They have some injuries, no Clint Capella at the moment that we're taping this, not Jalen Johnson, and a couple of other guys. But I was asked before by our friends here at Big Play about what is it that the Cavs need to do, and I believe it's nothing other than going back to the first 2 games and correct the mistakes. They do pose a matchup problem sometimes because of their height and their length.
Yeah.
What do you think is going on between Cavs and Hawks? Or was it just more of a moment where the Cavs were still coming off their hot streak to start the season and everybody wanted to bring their best game to us?
I think it's a little bit, with Trae Young in Atlanta, the point guard, he went from they were trying to make him like the next Steph Curry. Well, he's turned into the next, what they want to be, the next Steve Nash, which is more of a distributor. He's really embraced that role.
And he had a good night.
Yeah, and that can create problems. He leads the NBA in assists. If you're trying to defend the Hawks, one of the Cavs' Achilles heels early in the season and sometimes later in the season was defending the three-point line. Well, they've managed to clean that up the last couple of games after their coach sat them down and had a talk with them, and it's been much better. That's where they struggled against Atlanta. The Hawks have really been laboring and struggling recently. Look, Atlanta's the only team in the league to have won in Cleveland, in Boston twice. In New York. So they've beaten all the top 3 teams in the Eastern Conference in their building. So they're very dangerous. The one thing about them is they seem to fold easily. So if you get a big lead on them or are playing very well, they tend to collapse. So, I think the problem from earlier this season, Ralph, you said it, was Cavs were still kind of finding their way after that early hot streak. And Atlanta's just they're just a dangerous team because you never know which Hawks team you're going to get.
And thanks to our friends at Garage Beer, we kind of switched here the script. We went to the look ahead instead of the headlines. So we'll go back to the headlines. Don't worry about it. But I'm sure our friends at Garage Beer don't mind taking charge of the look ahead this week. But after that is the Mavericks. We already faced the Mavericks with a look in AAC, they call it, right? American Airlines Center, and we beat no Kyrie Irving that night. I believe I remember if I remember correctly.
Yeah. No.
I believe there will be no Luka on February 2nd, Groundhog. If the winter comes out longer, what is it? What's the name of that dude that
Puxatani Phil.
What is it, Ryan?
Puxatani Phil.
Puxatani. Yeah. Well, it's not my fault. That's my birthday. I was born on Groundhog Day. So.
Well, I guess it's really you if you come outside.
I mean, don't blame me. Blame that dude. And no Luka. But Kyrie, hopefully, the fans will get to see him. If he doesn't want to play, it's fine with me. But it's a dangerous team, too. Another team that, remember, the Mavericks were in the finals last year. So it's not a team that they made some really good changes in the trade deadline with the kid from, the center from Washington, who was hurt a little bit, and also the guy that came from P.J. Washington that came from Charlotte. It's still a dangerous team.
Yeah, Daniel Gafford's the guy you're thinking of. But, they have those two. They obviously added Klay Thompson, who looked a little washed up at the start of the year, now had a really good run lately. Kyrie Irving's been playing. So they're starting to find their stride a little bit in Dallas. They're obviously a team that values this second half stretch of the season as they did last year. Nobody predicted they were going to get to the finals, but they play very well together, much like the Cavs. They've got a lot of good experience, a lot of good depth. So, always a dangerous team, especially if Klay Thompson's hitting shots.
And after that, a little break a day in between, and then the Celtics come into town. The first 2 matches between these 2 teams, who everybody thinks they're going to be, or at least now, but not at the beginning of the season. Not everybody outside of Cleveland was expecting the Cavs to be joining the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. But now I don't think there's many people thinking that that's not going to be the matchup. And the first 2 have not disappointed.
Right, yeah. And, look, Boston, as much as the Cavs fans were freaking out over 5-5, the Celtics were 10-10 in 20 games. And they really, they went into L.A. and played terrible, shot the ball terribly. And I thought, why don't the Celtics shoot that poorly against the Cavs ever? Because if they did, they'd get run out of the gym. They've been shooting like 50% against the Cavs. But look, if you're the Cavs, you've got the Dallas Mavericks and the Boston Celtics, the 2 teams that were in the finals last year. You're probably going to try to make a little bit of a statement here if you're the Cavs, even though it's, right ahead of the All-Star break. And Kenny Atkinson said it the other day, we could use the break right now. And probably most teams. He's like, not just the coaches, the players, everybody could use the break. So we're going to try to push through till we get to, I believe it's February 14th, Valentine's Day weekend. And
you mentioned the break, and we talked about it here in the show about how the Cavs benefited from that break in December, not only because they didn't qualify to the Emirates Cup in Vegas, but also because they have extra time to work on their defense. And then I remember breaking up the season for them in two spots, in December, and then the break coming up in the month of February, because the Cavs are going to have, tonight as we speak, second consecutive week with a back-to-back. And then next week, after Dallas leaves, they travel to Detroit, a team that we beat quite handily when they came to visit us, but it's a team that is dangerous, and it's a team that is looking to make the top 6 in the NBA. I would say it's guaranteed they're going to make the playoff, even on the plane, unless something happens. But the Celtics, first the Mavericks, then there comes the Celtics, 11-9 on the last 20. But that's not that. All that goes out the window when you put the two teams that you're facing the team that eliminated us last playoff run, and then you go to Detroit to face once again JB Bickerstaff and his pupils in Michigan.
Yeah, and Detroit's again a team that plays up and down, plays pretty well on their floor. A young core that's still growing. They've got some veterans. We've seen. They've given the Cavs a little bit of issues here and there, and whenever you go into somebody else's building, it's always dangerous. So kudos, as we've said, to J.B. Bickerstaff for the job he's done there and the job former Cavs shooting guard Trajan Langdon has done as their president of basketball operations. And
I don't mean to get ahead of time here, but I know there was a news that Commissioner Silver had talked about bringing 10-minute quarters.
Ugh.
How about we just stop 3 games in 4 nights for the Cavs 3 times since January 24th, but by the time they face the Mavericks, the Mavericks, Celtics, and Pistons in 4 days. So that's one of the things that could be changed.
I think that would be better than 10-minute quarters.
I just put the table down for Sam Amico to figure it out when we come back for another segment of Full Court Cleveland. De regreso con ustedes en Full Court Cleveland, Sam Amico, Ryan Tyler, and yours truly, Rafa Hernández Brito. Y las gracias a nuestros amigos de Garage Beer for the headlines. We're going to go back to the headlines from our friends of Garage Beer, so they get a double segment.
They can't beat that.
2 for 1. Maybe when they have 2 for 1 in Garage Beer, we can show up and get ourselves a 6-pack. But, well, the headlines. The All-Stars. Donovan Mitchell, the 3rd Cavalier to be a starter multiple times in the All-Star game. The other 2... Yeah. Anybody can guess them. LeBron James 10 times, Kyrie Irving 3 times, and Donovan Mitchell, the only 2 times that he has been a starter in the All-Star game has been for the Eastern Conference as a Cleveland Cavalier, and he will be coached by his own coaching staff because Kenny Atkinson and his staff earned the right to be the head coach of the Eastern Conference in San Francisco.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, look, Donovan Mitchell certainly deserves to be a starter. He's deserved to be a starter every year he's in Cleveland. I would contend that Darius Garland deserves to be a starter, but that's a whole nother topic. But look, if you've had the type of season the Cavs have had, without question, you deserve at least 1 starter, but probably 2.
Okay, time for me to put the glasses because I got to read these little numbers, and I want to make sure I read them correctly.
That's a good move.
Because they gave us the fan voting in the Eastern Conference, right? And you told me if you agree with this. The front court, we know the starter, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Jason Tatum, and Karl Anthony Towns.
Yeah, I think
they were 1, 2, 3 with the fans. They were 1, 2, 3 with the players, and they were 1, 1, 3 with the media. So everybody...
Yeah, I would say, I would say yes, that's a good start.
Evan Mobley was 4th across the board, which means he'll be selected tonight as we speak to be a reserve in the All-Star. I think it's almost guaranteed.
Yeah, it's guaranteed.
Evan Mobley has to
I would say so.
Right? And then after that, Jaylen Brown. But this is the surprising thing. Jared Allen was 8th behind Joel Embiid by player ranks. Behind Jaylen Brown, obviously behind Mobley, and behind Paolo Banchero, 2 guys that haven't even been half the time on the court.
Banchero and Embiid certainly don't deserve to go.
They don't deserve to.
Yeah. No, I don't. I wish I had an explanation. Every year, Roth, I look at the voting, and I have the exact same reaction that you just had. Come on, what's going on?
And I understand the fans.
Sure.
Turning this into a popularity contest, like Lonzo Ball and LaMelo Ball getting millions of votes, it's fine. You can vote. Everybody has the right to vote, right? But the players and the media, no one person put Jared Allen as deserving to be in the All-Star game, and to have Joel Embiid ahead of Jared Allen
and
by
Banchero.
The players. Come on.
Yeah,
I know if you want to support Joel Embiid with all the mess he's having over there in Philadelphia, go ahead and do it, but not. not by just shading somebody else.
There's no way in any league right now does Joel Embiid deserve to be an All-Star. I don't know why you would think he would. He's played 13 of the first 43 games. He's been hurt.
Ridiculous.
He's been a distraction. Yeah,
Forgive me, players, but Jimmy Butler, you voted him 9th to be in the All-Star game. Forget about all the issues that he's been having in Miami. Yeah. He has not had an All-Star season.
He's barely played. He's barely played, and he served as a distraction. I think that you need to take that into account.
Like it is here. Let's go to the backcourt, right? Mitchell and Bronson, 2 Knicks starting in the All-Star game.
Not a big surprise.
The fans have the right to vote, even though the fans voted LaMelo Ball first.
Yeah. Yeah.
Congratulations. Right. You won the popularity contest, right? The players voted 1, 2, and then LaMelo Ball 3. The players voted LaMelo Ball.
I wish I had a reasonable explanation with perspective, but I don't have
The players voted LaMelo Ball and Trae Young over Darius Garland. Trae Young, okay, I'll give it to you. We talked about how he's trying to transform his game and everything, but come on.
I think it's hard to vote and be a realistic voter, and I would say this even about myself, if you don't watch every game of every team. Mm-hmm. Because then it's truly just like, whose shoes do I like best? Or, LaMelo Ball's cool, so we're going to vote him in. Darius Garland, to me, has really been the best guard in the Eastern Conference, point guard in the Eastern Conference. And that's not a slight at Jalen Brunson because they've been good, but the Cavs have been dynamite all season, and Darius Garland has been one of their top 2 players every game, if not their top player. So I just don't think people take those things into consideration. I don't, look, I don't blame them. If you're a Knicks fan, you're going to vote for your guys.
And for my colleagues, I don't think I'm a media member. I always respect your profession.
I think of myself as a basketball guy who writes, so I don't really.
That's why I never consider myself a reporter or a media member. First of all, so you guys don't think I'm also on the wrong. I don't agree with my colleagues.
Yeah,
they did get it right on the other side because they had Darius Garland as the 3rd guard.
Yeah,
after Mitchell and Bronson. So according to the media,
I can live with
Cavs
that.
have 2 of the top 3 guards, and that's okay.
I can live with it.
And then they have 4th Kate Cunningham, 5th Damian Lillard, 6th Trae Young, and LaMelo Ball 7. So
okay.
I think the Cavs should have guaranteed at least 3 All-Stars in this. They deserve to have 4 because people underestimate the value of Jared Allen to this offense, the value of Jared Allen to the Cavs defense, and the value of Jared Allen as a whole to what the Cavs have done this season. If not, go look back at the games that Jared Allen is not either involved in the offense or playing. It's something to really appreciate. And I think my friend Mod Squad have not gotten really the respect from either his colleagues or the fans.
Yeah, I think one of Jared Allen's best games was the win in Miami, right? Just the other night.
Double-double.
A double-double, but 12 points, 10 rebounds. But if you looked at him, the way he was playing, he was tireless in terms of boxing out, getting to 50-50 balls, just getting every rebound. And you could see at the end of the game he was exhausted and he was dragging, but he just kept going. And Jared's played in every game. He's been, just relentless when it comes to not worrying about his numbers, just making winning plays. And I thought that game in Miami, he had 12 points and 10 rebounds. To me, it looked like he had 30 points and 15 rebounds, just the way he was playing. And, this has been a team thing, right? So when you're a team that wins as a team and is succeeding as a team first type of deal, I think that sometimes the national media or the fans don't appreciate it and don't really notice what these guys are doing to lead them to wins. And when it comes to that, whether he's selected or not, Jared Allen, without question, is an all-star.
Everybody should have and should be happy that the Fro continues to be here in Cleveland. I'm going to ask my friends, the Big Play Network is a big organization, big company, and I'm going to ask our analytics department to support me on this take. I would like to see the numbers of. This is going back to those that thought that Tower City wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
With Mobley and Allen.
Yeah.
I would like to see the numbers of Allen by himself when they don't play, not when because they're without each other on the court.
Right.
Quite often when they switch from the M&Ms to Froland, right? But I would like to see the games when Mobley doesn't play and the games where Allen doesn't play and the game where neither of them play. I don't think there's many of those, but you can see the difference in personality in just who the Cavs are when one of them is missing just throughout the whole game.
Yeah, it changes obviously that you've got to do it if you're Kenny Atkinson, try and keep one on the floor at all times. But they're both dynamic in their own way, right? I mean, Mobley can now step out and hit those threes, and Allen's really become. People don't realize this. His footwork around the basket's gotten even better this season, and he forces nothing. That's the thing I like about the two big guys. Obviously, elite defensively, offensively, force nothing, and play within the flow of the game.
Well, of course, we're behind schedule here with all the stuff they put here in the rundown for full court Cleveland. We'll come back and try to catch up here on the Big Play Network. Welcome back, everybody, and thank you for tuning in, whether it is on the FanDuel Sports Network. I felt bad for some friends that came to the game the other day, and I was doing the game for Noche Latina, and thank you for all who supported, all our fans that speak Portuguese and Spanish, and they finished the game, went to a bar, and there was the screen at the bar, Sam Amico in the full screen. So thank you, FanDuel, for keeping us on. Thank you for watching us on the app. Thank you for watching us on Twitter when we go live. And Sam, they have here the power ranking. And you're the only one doing it today, so go ahead and bring a 12-pack, a 6-pack of Garage Beer, whatever you want to bring. It's the Garage Beer Power Rank. We're giving it all to them today because I switched.
You switched the headlines,
yeah,
but you know what? You're making up for it. Good job.
Okay. So in honor of Mr. Kenny Atkinson being named an all-star coach for the Eastern Conference, the fourth Cavalier head coach we said last time, right? Mike Brown, T. Lue,
Lenny Wilkins,
and Lenny
probably?
Wilkins. Yeah. And now Kenny Atkinson and his staff, and that means that one of our assistants will coach one of the 4 teams in the new version of
this All-Star game.
The All-Star game. And
another Adam Silver creation.
The young kids. But going to the power rank, the 3 best NBA coaches as we speak right now.
Kenny Atkinson be number 1.
Mm-hmm.
I would say Ime Udoka from the Rockets has done a magnificent job, and obviously to me, Mark Daigneault from Oklahoma City. They're pretty much naming the 3 best teams so far. The coaches, but those 3 obviously stand out. Joe Mazzulla in Boston.
Honorary mentions, J.B. Bickerstaff in Detroit.
J.B. Bickerstaff, without question, the job he's done this season has been fantastic. People forget about Taylor Jenkins in Memphis.
I was going to say that he never gets mentioned, but he has done a lot with a lot of injuries. And
a lot of injuries, and especially injuries to their star, and Ja Morant has been in and out of the lineup. They've stayed the course. Everybody, Michael Malone's been obviously a guy who's done wonders with Denver. So there's a lot of guys, and a guy who gets
to say the 3 best, right?
The 3 best
guys doing the best job.
That's why I bring out a 6 or 12 pack.
That's why I said you do it all. You do it all yourself today because it can't just cut it down to 3. I don't even know they sell beer in 3-packs anyway.
Who would want that?
Attention, production. This power 3 thing is not working because
of me.
even in my days of a beer salesman and we had Bottles and James wine cooler, that was a 4-pack that we sold.
Right, back in the old days.
Yeah, I don't know what the new drinks come in. Is it 6-pack or like the high noons and all that stuff?
Yeah, I don't know. I've gotten old, Ralph. I don't know these things.
My friend was saying to me about something. I used to drink. Let's just not go back too much back in time. But there's so many coaches that are doing a good job, and again, it's just coaches maybe that are not like in New Orleans. Might be.
With Willie Green. It's unfair.
Dealt
what's
with
happened.
A lot of injuries and everything, but it's kind of like that era of Willie Green in New Orleans seemed to be
well,
in trouble a little
coaches are the fall guys.
bit. It's always, you're not going to fire 15 guys under contract.
Right. You just can't do it. The Toronto coach is probably a little bit in trouble.
What about Nick Nurse? What do you think that evaluates at the end of the season?
I think Nick Nurse is the victim of a poor, and I've said this before, Browns-like culture there in Philadelphia. And Daryl Morey, who's the president of basketball operations, is a wonderful guy. He's from Medina, down the road. But I just think in Philly, it's a culture issue. You generally will go as a team, not the way of your coach, but the way of your star player. And Joel Embiid has not been healthy. We've talked about this, Ralph. He shoved a reporter. He's come out and said, I'm not playing every night. So I think that they got off to that tough start. Nick Nurse is a good coach, right? I mean, we saw what he did in Toronto.
He won a championship, right?
Right. And the fact that he's doing what he's doing in Philadelphia
now, let me ask you a
impressive.
question. You mentioned Philadelphia having Browns, so let's talk about Browns, one by comparison from you, and the other one by relationship, the Milwaukee Bucks. Obviously,
Jimmy Haslam.
The Haslam family has ownership in the team. But do you expect them, A, to make any changes at the end of the season, or do you expect them to be active in the trade deadline, with Doug Rivers and Nick Nurse? We're talking about two coaches that actually they both have something to do with Philadelphia as well. So
Right, yeah. Well, I think with the Bucks, it's more, I wouldn't be surprised, trade deadline's a week from today. So when we're taping the show, I'll be sitting here on my phone.
Yeah.
But I think that in Milwaukee, they're looking to make a move and almost a splashy move. Whether they can do that or not, it remains to be seen. Because they don't have a lot to offer a team. But with the Miami Heat lowering their asking price for Jimmy Butler, Milwaukee could be a player in that. I don't know that that's a great fit, but I'm just saying Zach LaVine. No. Yeah. No, I think there's a lot out there, but there's a lot out there that doesn't move the needle if you're opposing teams. And now with these new labor rules, I expect the trade deadline and teams like the Bucks to be impacted and not be able to really make a move that moves the needle. But they're going to look.
I'll leave this question to you because obviously this is what you do. Brian Windhorst told ESPN Cleveland that Ben Simmons and Lonzo Ball are two guys that could be bought out that fit what the Cavs need. I don't want to comment on it because I don't, it's not my position. What's your take on those two guys?
Well, I think, look, Ben Simmons is a guy who's obviously not what he once was, but he's an outstanding wing defender still. The problem with Ben Simmons right now is keeping him on the court. But he's a guy, while he can't shoot, he's a guy who facilitates offense very well. He's had a very good attitude in a rebuilding situation with the Nets. I've had one scout, and I don't know Ben Simmons personally, so I can't speak to this, but one scout says he's really grown up this year and learned to live with his role and appreciative of it. So he's happy again. It seems like the joy is back. Look, if you're the Cavs, I don't think you really need to do anything because the locker room is so great. And I think that connectivity is something that teams kill for. And I haven't seen it in my 17 years covering this team before like this, not this good. So I would be real hesitant to mess with that. But if you can bring in somebody who's a positive, then, it doesn't have to be Ben Simmons or Alonzo Ball or, one of those guys. Those guys are going to take away playing time from people who are playing really well. Yeah. So I think if you can add somebody in an area that you like, look, we could use a power forward center type. Sure. And Ben Simmons would be a power forward in this offense. So, maybe something like that would help you out.
And keep in mind the Cavs have an extra roster spot. So,
right.
We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens next week. All we know for sure is taxes, death, and another segment of Full Court Cleveland coming up. Welcome back, everybody. Sam Amico, yours truly, Rafa Hernandez Brito here in front of the beautiful, still frozen Lake Erie. And let's go around the NBA. The first one I want to just get out of the way here is that I already threw it on the table, threw it at you, is the 10-minute quarters suggested by
I'm glad you brought that up.
Commissioner Adam Silver. I believe not only basketball, but also baseball are kind of in the wrong side trying to make this game faster. Yeah. I don't know. I love baseball. I never once in my life complained about 3-hour games at the park, having a beer and enjoying a hot dog, or even watching at home. So what you take, let's get back to the Orange Bowl, 10-minute quarters.
I think Adam Silver means well. He's trying to do what's best for the game. We heard Michael Malone, the Nuggets coach, former Cavs assistant, reacted to that, and he said, I don't want to turn us into Barnum and Bailey here. We've played, the NBA has played 12-minute quarters since its inception. Adam Silver cited viewer habits that maybe we need to shorten the games. Okay, so you're talking another 20 minutes? To me, it's just... I like Adam Silver. I think he means well. I think a lot of his ideas are panic moves. And if there's ratings issues, I don't think you can do it, number one, because you're going to really cut back on stats. When you talk about all-time leading scorers or all-time leading assist men, all of a sudden the players of this era aren't going to have the numbers. You're going to have to call it two different eras. I don't think that will ever go through, thankfully, and I think it's a terrible idea.
Let's start the discussion from this point. The fact that they need to make the game faster, right? Let's agree on that.
Faster in what way?
Would it be better to make the season shorter?
Yeah.
Or get rid of preseason? And just start the season earlier?
Yeah.
But then you get into more issues with ratings and competition with the league. But I believe, for example, I don't know how much of this have to do of not just making the game shorter, but also trying to, the health of the player and the load management.
Yeah.
How about getting rid of these 3 and 4 nights? The Cavs have had 3 of them in less than 3 weeks, one every week.
I think that's a big key. Even if you have to extend the season,
get creative with the schedule.
Right, you got to get more creative with the schedule to avoid those things. I also think, the NBA doesn't require its teams to play any preseason games. These are these games are generated by the teams.
Really?
Yeah. So if you ask the NBA, they'll say we don't care if they play preseason game or not.
Okay.
So I think that's probably one way, and that's obviously a very small way because starters don't play that much in the preseason or they don't play all that hard. But if you just had like one warm-up game, I think, and convince the owners, look, don't even sell this game. Have them play at Cleveland State and give away the tickets to the boys and girls clubs or whatever. I think that's one way. You eliminate that. You start the regular season sooner. That way you spread it out and you spread out the amount of games. But cutting each game by
the other thing is,
8 minutes. Yeah,
the league basically takes a week off in December while all this Emirates Cup thing is going on.
Right. I think there's a way
they made the All-Star break longer.
Maybe make that cup single elimination. I think that would create maybe a scheduling nightmare, but at the same time, you're saving yourself all this long week off. Well, how much time do the Cavs have off?
There's no reason why teams that don't qualify do not play during those days.
They want to make it so that the big focus
is on the cup.
Obviously, the
schedule doesn't allow you to program it ahead of time because you don't know who makes it or who doesn't. Right? So it's a thing that I think those are the things that they got to manage.
And the All-Star
You want to make the game faster. There are some times where they go challenge. There's a challenge and they go review something. They just take a lot longer than everybody in the arena and everybody at home already saw the play. And there's not even need to go.
There are ways to cut into the time of
when
games.
the ref gets there and
you have 30 seconds.
Can tell him, hey,
30 seconds. Right.
I know there's some others that they have to be looked into, who touched it last, there was a foul, whatever. But I have seen moments where there's plays where it's like it's just way too much.
Yeah.
I
ate a whole Gringo Bowl once while the replay was going on.
As much as I want them to get it right, and there are some times where they gotta take some time. Maybe there's a scuffle or anything like that. Yeah. But more often than not, they could make a quicker decision as opposed to trying to figure out. Like, for example, I'll give you that. You want to save some time. The moment there is a challenge, somebody in Secaucus should be looking at what time the clock should be set at. And not make a decision, and then you have to spend another minute trying to go back to see when what should the clock say at the time. You know what I mean? Just look ahead of, like, solve problems ahead of time.
Well, so, like LeBron said, it seemed like the person in Secaucus was eating an egg salad sandwich while they were, oh my gosh, all of a sudden they got to do a replay. So, I think that there has to be obviously much more quick thinking in that. And there's ways to cut in to the time of games without, I think, cutting each quarter by 2 minutes.
Less than a minute to go, less than 30 seconds to go. Players that you hope are going to be, or you think is sure that they're going to be in the All-Star reserve list, other than Cavs players?
Well, I think Tyler Hero has done a great job this year and really deserves. He's probably a wild card. Obviously, we're taping this at the time when they're going to be or it's going to be announced. But I think Tyler Hero, whether he's in or out, should be a guy who goes simply because he's had such a great season and that team has been very good. I would hope that Trae Young is there, has changed his game. And then in the Western Conference, obviously Anthony Edwards belongs, and he'll be there.
Started.
He should be starter, and he'll be there. Beyond that, it's hard for me to think of anybody off the top of my head who could be. There's always going to be snubs. Yeah. Always going to be snubs.
But we'll talk about next week who we take out to bring in the snubs, because that's what you have to solve the problem. Yeah. And before we go, how much things have changed. The Warriors have one All-Star this season, and he's an All-Star because he was part of the popularity contest by the fans. Otherwise, I don't think Steph Curry had made it. Like we said, Anthony Edwards at least should have been the starter in that position.
Well, I like Steph Curry because he shares our birthday month. You're February 2nd.
Okay.
I'm the 22nd.
Okay.
Same day as Dr. J. We're going to have a month-long party.
All right. We'll come back to wrap this up in Full Court Cleveland. Down the stretch they come, and that's for Ryan Tyler, who loves doing his horse racing show. That's right. Down the stretch they come. Inside joke. Inside family joke. Okay, this is the time where we're allowed to get off the ball, the basketball, and go into other sports. And obviously, the NFL made it a longer season. While the NBA is trying to cut it, the NBA is making it longer. The NFL, is making it longer, and the Super Bowl will be almost on right before Valentine's weekend. The Chiefs facing the Eagles once again. The Eagles who fire Mr. Andy Reid a while back.
Yeah.
Are again in the Super Bowl.
Second time in 3 years, right? Yeah. Wow. Well, I like the Chiefs to win that game. I'm rooting for the Eagles. Went to college for a couple years, Villanova, right outside Philly. So I didn't go to Villanova. I went to the college right across the street from Villanova, which has since shut down.
Like I said, I went to Harvard, but I was on the other side of the river.
That's right. I was at Yale, but not really Yale. But anyway, so yeah, it's hard to. I just like the. I'm an idiot. I like the commercials.
Really?
You don't?
In my days working the NFL, I never got a chance to watch the commercials.
Right? Yeah.
And then in my days prior to working the NFL, by the time the game started, I was never really able to watch the commercial. So, you know what I mean?
Well, a lot of times, now I'll be shoving my face full of food.
How about them Bills? They're really good at doing things 4 times. Like they lost 4 Super Bowls, they lost 4 times to the Chiefs. Yeah. And they can't get over the chef.
I feel for those fans. I think that we know that, if you're old enough, such as I am, going back in the 80s, those Browns could never, they were always really good, but could never get over the hump. In that case, it was John Elway and the Broncos.
Yeah. Okay, before we go, how many All-Stars will the Cavs have once the reserves are announced tonight, I will speak. So but next time we're here, how many All-Stars?
I'm afraid to say that they'll have 3 when they deserve 4. I think that Jared Allen's going to be a snub, not from anything we think, but just the way it goes sometimes. So I think they have 3, but deserve 4.
And message to the NBA before fixing like the 10-minute quarter. How about we fix the dunk contest? Mike McClung, Stephen Castle, Matas Buzelis, and Andre John Jackson Jr. I know McClung because he won the last couple.
He keeps winning, yeah.
And he rarely plays, but he shows up.
He's a G League All-Star.
I have some ideas if you want to call me, check me out. And at Full Court Cleveland. We'll be back next week with a little bit more of what the stretch for the Cavs has meant and what the All-Star, what we should expect in the All-Star game, and maybe Sam Amico in the dunk contest when we come back next week on Full Court Cleveland.